I'm still getting subscribers. I haven't made a video for a freaking year, and people are still subscribing. Thank you. Though I don't know if it's my fans or my haters that are subscribing to me. Be odd if you really hated me that much to subscribe. Anyway, I'm going to talk about Diablo 3 because unlike with StarCraft to StarCraft 2, Diablo 2 to Diablo 3, they actually improved stuff and changed stuff dramatically in ways that I just love. And that's odd for a game to do, especially for Blizzard to do, in my mind. Blizzard often, they have good games, but they don't tend not to do things that I like. I'm going to start off with the runes. If you don't know anything about it, I'll explain. In the Diablo 2, they had, in the beginning, they had the 5 classes, 30 spells apiece. There's about 150 spells. And they started rattling off these numbers and make you think that the customization of your character would be great. But in the end, the builds of characters, there's only about 15 good builds that you can make. So there's only about 15 characters, different types of characters out there. Granted, a lot of people made other characters that weren't as good, but they were basically just for fun that they were doing that. Now, the thing was that you only had so many skill points, and you had to put them in a certain tree, and you could only go to the best spells in that tree if you followed that tree path, and so you were narrowed by your choices, basically. Very narrowed, and it ended up making very few builds that were efficient for high-level gaming. So, the thing they did, in the past, in another video, I actually suggested things that would modify spells that you could do, like, this is for a Morpeg, but like when casting a certain, like a fire blast or whatever, and you used a certain herb with that, and you could add poison damage or stun damage or something like that to the spell, and it would modify the spell to make it more customized. And so far I haven't really seen anything like that to any great extent or purposeful extent. Now they have with you get something called a rune, which looks like a gem, and you somehow attach it to a spell. You get past that whole idea of attaching to a spell, which doesn't make a huge logical sense, but you do it, and it modifies the spell. In some ways it just makes it cheaper or more damage, but in other ways it changes it completely. Like you can go from, it goes from a direct attack to an area of effect spell, or you go from shooting one arrow to shooting multiple arrows, or you shoot one lightning bolt to shoot many lightning bolts, or instead of lightning it's now an ice bolt or something like that. These runes dramatically change the effect of this spell, making one certain spell so customizable it could be used for many different things. And any of these spells can be done with this. And the runes themselves have different levels, so they can increase it to greater extents on that as you go along. It just blew my mind. And I did calculations with a friend of mine who's a math major, and we calculated, and it was in the billions if every single set of spells that you could choose were actually useful, which probably isn't the case. So we gave them a benefit of the doubt and said, okay, what do we really predict would be like the average case of how many things you could choose from that would actually be useful. And we did that, and it was still, the amount of builds that could be useful was still in the tens of thousands. And of course we gave them the benefit of that. If we take it down, it's still in the thousands. where you're going from Diablo 2, which was about 15, to thousands, or if they really messed it up, hundreds, it's still a lot better. Just adding that level of customization. As I've said before in other videos, that adding that level of diversity really increase the amount of builds and specialization, and people feel more unique when playing the game. And not only that, they're constantly thinking of what other builds they could do to make theirs better or make an entirely new character. And they're constantly thinking of playing the game more. And instead of getting, isolated into, you could either do it this way or this way or this way, and there's no other way that's really useful. But in this, you could come up with stuff no one has ever done before, and at least to your extent, and still be useful. Like, you could be unique and still useful, which was always a lot of fun. But it's just beautiful. Genius. I love it. I'm not saying that, because it hasn't come out yet, I'm not saying it's guaranteed to be great, but I mean, I don't like to hype things up, but I really would like this to work well, and it seems to me like they're at least on the right idea track, and that is the hardest step to get anybody to do, is to just be on the right idea going in. Implementation is, of course, the hardest part, and they're working on that, apparently. I'm going to go to since I'm on it, the skill tree. As I said before, in Diablo 2, they had a set amount of skill points you could get per character, and that limited your choices of which were your top 4 or 5 skills that you'd put those skill points in, and they'd be useful to you. What Blizzard did, and when Diablo 2 originally came out, once you put that skill point in, you couldn't change it. It was set to that, and if you wanted a different type of that character, you had to start over from the beginning to make that character. And people were complaining about this because they can't, because it takes time to do all that leveling. Even if you do cheat and super power level and stuff like that. So Blizzard added in a thing called respecking, where after you put the skill point in, you could move it later. So they continued that until recently, when they realized that people were just putting it all into the best skill they could get in the skill tree, and then until they got a better skill, and then they respec and put all that into another spell, and so on and so on. So they got rid of the respecking altogether, which was a great idea. And how they did it was, your spell, the damage or whatever your spell would do, the power of the effect of your spell would be based entirely on your level and or your armor or your weapon, depending on the skill, which makes perfect sense. Because, especially in a leveling system, where you're higher level, this spell does more than someone of a lower level than you. And they, of course, limited you to a certain amount of spells you could use. I think it was like 6 or something. So that is your arsenal. These 6 spells that get leveled up as you level up. They increase as you increase. You don't have to do a separate leveling on the side of leveling your spells along with that. In other games, like World of Warcraft, where you have to, apparently pay gold to level up your spells and stuff like that. And here, you just, as you level up, your spells get better. Why not? It seems like a minor thing, but I loved it. I loved it. And people are freaking out on the respecking, and others are absolutely loving it like I am. So hopefully it works well and other people like it. Another thing they added into Diablo 3 was multiplayer. As in PvP multiplayer. That's what I consider multiplayer. Not co-op, I don't consider that multiplayer, really. Anyway, which was a great idea, because people play on the internet originally so that they could play against other people. And Diablo 2, they had it, sort of, but it wasn't balanced. It's very unbalanced, and usually you'd die quickly or kill quickly. There wasn't a whole lot of point of playing it unless you're just bored with the game. And it was also hard to find other people to play with. You usually have to just play with your friends because it's the only people that would be worthy of playing with you. So here they made an entire thing that sets it up all for you, and you go into an arena and you do this thing, this team deathmatch pretty much is what it is, and just wail on each other for a certain amount of time and see how many kills you can get. And it's just beautiful because they balanced it for you and they made it specifically for that, whereas Diablo 2 wasn't made for that. It was like, it seemed almost like an afterthought that they added in for you, but it was never meant to be that way. Diablo 3, they're making it for multiplayer. The mode ahead of time, balancing it for you so it's actually made for multiplayer, or to be useful and fun in multiplayer, where you don't have to find people yourself. It sets up the games for you, sets up against people that are around your same level or skill ability, and you get to play them. So when you're tired of just killing monsters, which you might, you can mix it up a bit, and adding this adds so much to a game. I'm very happy they did that. It's just beautiful. And a lot of the action RPGs have this, but it doesn't seem like they really put a whole lot of effort into the balancing of it. It's usually offset a lot. We'll see how that goes. Final thing I will talk about is the auction houses. Just seemed odd to be putting into a Diablo type game, which is a lot like a dungeon crawler. But I like the idea of an auction house because, say on Diablo 2, there was this rune word. They had these tiny words that were on stones that gave special abilities for your weapon, and I was trying to get this one specific one, I forget what it was, that I would grind and I would grind and I would grind, and I'd get like every other word besides that one, you know, and it was a pain in the ass. I really wanted this, and the problem was, you know, I put in all this effort and not get that thing that was supposed to be easy to get the drop, and it just wouldn't do it. And an auction house thing, with that, I could take the stuff I was getting from the grind and put it towards gold or whatever, so that I could use that to get what I really wanted from the auction house. It allowed me to benefit from my grinding, my attacking monsters constantly, so that I could actually use it for something useful. So when you grind and grind and grind, even if you don't get the drop you want, you're still getting stuff that could work towards getting what you need in the auction house. So all the time you spend isn't wasted. And that's the idea part of the auction house that I liked. Now, the controversial part is the real money auction house. And you don't know what that is or how it works, you can look it up or whatever. There are moral issues and all that crap and things like that. I don't really care. No, but I think people should chillax on that a little. So anyway, thanks for subscribing. That's my view on a game that actually added a lot of things I like. I'll put out a few more videos and then I guess disappear for a year again. Or whatever the hell happens. I don't know. So long.